Okay, so thank you all for joining us for the 2021 STC Florida Employment Panel. We do this event every year where we gather together hiring managers to answer your questions about what it's like to be hired as a tech writer in the current climate. And we're very grateful to have all of our panelists here that we'll be introducing shortly to answer some moderated questions, and then we'll open it to Q&A from you guys. So feel free to chime in at any point in the chat with anything you would like to ask. So just to quickly go over the agenda, we already had our networking and shared some job opportunities. If you've joined late and did not get the access to those, please feel free to put in the chat and we'll make sure to share links and contacts for those. So we look forward to seeing this as an opportunity to connect people with positions, especially those who are looking to transition into the profession, looking for their next opportunity, or our students who are on the cusp of graduation. So feel free to post in the chat if you'd missed anything. Wanted to give you guys also a welcome, so we'll cover that, and then we'll go into the moderated Q&A, like I mentioned, then open Q&A, and then we'll close. So we're going to try to make the most of this time to get as much knowledge from our panelists as we can, and they have a lot. So welcome from STC Florida. I am a previous president for the Florida chapter. My name is Bethany Aguad. I am now a very engaged volunteer since I'm currently serving on STC's board of directors, but I'm very glad to welcome you all. Alex has also introduced himself, who is the immediate past president. So if you have any questions about membership in, STC, or especially if you join us, STC Florida, we are happy to help you answer your questions. If you're looking to build out your portfolio, get some volunteer credentials. We are always looking for that sort of opportunity. We have a lot of folks here I know who are already our members, so thank you guys for being on and joining us. And we'll just look forward to keeping you up to date. I think everyone here is probably on our email list, but if not, let me know so we can keep you in the loop on future events and what's going to be going on with the Florida chapter. So without further ado, I think we have all of our panelists here on video. I'm checking, of course, to make sure. And I was going to put you guys on the spot so you can do a brief introduction. We'll go in order, so I'll call on you when it's time. But if you could just tell us, a bit about yourself, who you work for, your current role, maybe a bit about your past experience, and then we'll, move on into the questions. So, Don, you are up first.
Lucky me. I guess it's alphabetical, huh? Okay, I currently work at JHD. I've been there for 16 years. I was previously in the Air Force for that, went 20 years and retired. I'm currently assistant program manager and technical lead for up to 3 or 4 different contracts we're running right now. We have a contract with Mission Command, which is for BFT, if anybody understands what that means. Blue Force Tracker, which is kind of identify friend foe type of system that based on the vehicles for the Army. We're also working on the tactical radios contract, and we do leader radio and man-pack radio for that. We're also doing some sensors for different events. Like if you have a nuclear event, we do the sensors that they put on the outside of the vehicles where they go in to check the levels to make sure it's safe to go back. Or if they have a catastrophe or something, like a meltdown or something, then they would do that. Or if they're going to war for chemical warfare. We've also done recently in the last year, we did a field kitchen, which was a different thing that we had wrote a book on how to do is set up an Army field kitchen and set that up. So they actually served 300 people for 3 meals a day in that field kitchen based on out of our technical manual where we did that. We also have Navy contracts on board at the moment. We're working with Aegis ashore, doing a trainer and some training for them along with the computer-based training. We're also working on some other assorted other smaller contracts for different other things at the moment.
Okay, great. Thanks, Don. Patrick, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yes, so Patrick Green, I'm the technical documentation manager at Lockheed Martin. It's the RMS facility, so the one on the east side. I've been with Lockheed about just over 20 years. I'm a retired Marine, did 21 years in the Marine Corps. I've worked on a variety of things at Lockheed, and at the RMS facility, we support just about every program that we have there, which is, a lot of different simulators for tanks, planes, ships, helicopters. We do different types of automated test equipment, as well as live fire ranges.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. Stephanie, you are up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephanie Young. Hi, Don. It's been a long time. I worked with Don for about 5 years, so I just had to say hi. It's been a couple years since I've seen him. I've been in Department of Defense doing a variety of jobs for about 19 years now. I've done technical illustration, technical publications. I was a civilian who went through the Total Army Instructor Training course and became Army certified to do hands-on training and stand-up training for Army reservists. And now I'm also a configuration manager. And I'm double certified in that. I work at Lockheed Martin Missiles and Fire Control, so I'm on the west side. Hey, Patrick, my neighbor. And we, in my program, we have both tech pubs and CDM people under me. My direct team is 15 people, and for tech pubs, we do about 26 contracts, and my CDM team manages about 127, both for the Air Force and the Navy.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. Christine.
Hi, everybody.
Yes.
I'm Christine Christensen. I work as the documentation manager at CityWorks, which is a part of Trimble. And we're a software company. So I have a team of 8 technical writers, and we are responsible for all of the online help, training documents, user guides, help videos, quick start guides. We generate all of the content for our customers who use our software. I've been here for 10 years. I started out as a technical writer, and then about 6 years ago, I transitioned into the manager role that I'm in now.
All right. Thank you, Christine. And last but certainly not least, Rhyne.
Hi, I'm Rhyne Armstrong. I am the manager for technical writers at Jamf Software. Jamf is a fairly small company, but pretty big in the Apple industry. So we do Apple enterprise management software. Basically, we create software that allows any size company to manage, schools and companies to manage fleets of iPhones, iPads, iMacs, MacBooks, whatever it is. Allows them to do that. Since Apple doesn't have that built in, we've built it for them. I am a full-time manager. I've not been a practicing technical writer for at least the last 5 years. So everything is about managing people now. I manage 9 technical writers at various levels and have an opening for a 10th. We are hiring technical writer 2, which is between basic technical writer and then a senior. So around 3 years experience. But the caveat with this one is we want someone who has a security background, meaning info security or cybersecurity. Interesting with all the Air Force talk, the first time I spoke at the joint FTC STC meeting, I think it was in 2012, I brought my son. He was in 5th grade at the time. We just dropped him off on Monday to start his career in the Air Force. So he's now at Lackland for the last few days at BMT. So I heard the word Air Force way too many times for me not to tear up right now. So.
Well, congratulations to you and to him.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us. And when you get a chance, or I guess later, feel free to share, or we'll grab a link to that opportunity if you guys are hiring, because I think we've got people of different experience levels who are looking for work. So maybe there's someone who'd be a good fit. All right. So like I said, we'll have some moderated Q&A, meaning I've got some prepared questions I sent to our presenters. And then we'll go into open Q&A. If you have a question that comes up along the way, feel free to put it in the chat, and Julia is going to snag it for later, and we'll make sure to get it answered. So we've got a very broad first question, but this is usually the one that comes up every time in the employment panel, which is, what recommendations do you have for a job search strategy? How to approach searching for a job? This can be broad or specific. Looking to hear what you guys have to say. So, Don, I see you nodding a lot. You've got some advice?
My advice is to try the online links that you can do for putting resumes and stuff out there. Obviously, going through the college and STC is also a good way, because some of us like to stay involved with the UCF and see if we can help out the people as they're getting started.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we go. I actually got my job by going to a job symposium in Orlando for people with security clearances. So that was kind of a backdoor way that I got in.
All right, as you say, put yourself out there. Stephanie, I saw you nodding. You've got some thoughts as well.
Oh yeah, continue doing this. Alex can contest to how many people from STC that I've hired directly. So the networking is just a fantastic idea.
All right, Rhyne, you've got some wisdom to share.
Yeah, I would just say, since we have been hiring and we just went through hiring a opening. Gosh, sorry, I've been driving for the last 6 hours. We had an entry level hire recently, and then we just hired an intern, and I'm hiring now. I would say the number one thing is make sure you target your resume to fit the job that you're looking for. Read through the job descriptions, because a lot of us put a lot of effort in those job descriptions, especially if it says required on it, and really tailor your resume to hit that, so you won't get screened out of before you even. I mean, I've gotten, even for the security job, I've gotten several resumes, and if it doesn't have security on there, I tend to throw it out. But one, I knew the person and I knew they had security, even though they didn't say it. So I'm looking forward to talking to them and finding out why they didn't change their resume to match the job.
So it's twofold. You have to do a good
Yeah.
resume, good application, good fit, and it doesn't hurt if you have those personal connections as well.
Exactly. So the networking is still really good.
Mm-hmm. Christine, I know I'm putting you on the spot. Did you have any thoughts to share from job search, how to approach it?
I would say be intentional with your search. The field of tech comm is so big. You can work in software documentation, medical writing. We've seen some great examples of the military and technical writing there. So really think about, what are you truly interested in, where do you really want to end up, and then be intentional in your search for something that matches what you want to do.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, especially because I think it can be natural to kind of go scattershot on, I need a job that pays me, so I'll apply for anything.
Exactly. So it helps to see somebody in an interview who's put thought into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'll move on to the next question, which is about the application process. I know that varies company by company. We've got a couple of Lockheed folks, so I'm sure you've got similar stories. But, how does it go from finding a job posting, applying, to potentially being hired? I'm going to put Stephanie on the spot. She looks ready.
I think about this one a lot. So at MFC, which is the West Plant for Lockheed Martin, there is a really intense screening process for resumes. So kind of like what Rhyne said, make sure your resume is tailored to the job description. Make sure you understand what is in those job descriptions, and make sure you can speak to those items, because you will be asked those same questions in the interview. I don't know how many times someone has sent me a resume and told me they've applied to a job, and weeks go by and I'm like, I've never seen this resume. It was screened out through sourcing. So it's just vital at my plant to make sure that your resume matches the job description.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Are
Absolutely.
there any specific things that would lead to a resume being screened out, or what are some key offenders?
So the required section of the job description is the vital part. And then depending on the influx, if there are too many, they will prefer on the recommended as well. Mm-hmm. So, it's just best to broaden your scope of knowledge to make sure you understand what's being asked for in the position, make sure you can fill that slot.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. So Rhyne, I'm going to toss it to you, since you said you're currently hiring. What's that process like after application?
With us, it's pretty straightforward. We don't have a tool that screens things, so we're not using the readers to filter things out. So I have a HR business partner that I'm working with, and she will look through the resumes, because we did a kickoff meeting, so I knew the bullet points, or she knows the bullet points that I'm looking for. And then through Workday, she flags the the resume she wants me to take a look at. I look at those and then say, since I know more about the career than she does, I look through and say yes or no. And then it goes to a panel round, second panel round, and then I have a final meeting with them to offer. So ours is pretty short. We hired the last one within 3 weeks of posting the job. We don't beat around the bush, and we don't want to take advantage of people in their time. I would say, though, if you're in the process and you get a phone screen, spend at least an hour finding out what the company does. I had a couple people that had no clue what Jamf did. They just put their resume in because, and it's called either hubris or they just don't care. Whatever it is, it was very odd to get people who got through the phone screen and still didn't do the research on what the company does. And then one last thing for the networking side. Personally, if you contact me on LinkedIn, I give your name to the screener, and at the very least, you get a phone call from her, regardless.
Okay, so even just reaching out through LinkedIn, even if someone hasn't met you personally, still can, give an extra leg
Absolutely.
up.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know. So I know, Patrick, we already talked Lockheed. Is there anything else about the application process that you think people might not be aware of?
I guess I would just echo on the things that other people have said. Make sure that your resume is targeted towards the job you're trying to get, and then do that research on the company that you're interviewing with, because that makes a pretty big difference. If you ask them, Tej, what do you know about Lockheed? I've interviewed lots of people that had no clue what Lockheed even did, even though we're, the largest defense contractor in the U.S. and in the world. But it's like, nope, never heard of that. And it's like, well, why are you even applying here if you don't know what we do?
Mm-hmm.
Or so, yeah, it's probably a big one. And the networking is also big. We've had a lot of success through the professors at UCF with our applicants. That's where a lot of the people have come from, either direct application, we contact the professors and they send us resumes, or through the CWIP program.
Yeah. I also like to say shout out to Alex. Thank you for doing some acronym translation for those of us who aren't in defense. I know it's helpful just to help guide the conversation. So thank you for doing that, Alex. Christine, is there anything that's different with your company with your application hiring process?
It's pretty similar. We have internal recruiters who do the screening. So they're looking for like the requirements from the job position. Then they pass the resumes on to me. Anybody that I'm interested in, they call and do an initial phone screening with the candidate just to get a feel for them, ask them some more questions, get their salary requirements. And then they pass that information back to me. And then I pick who I would like to meet with. And they set up an interview from there. One thing, when you interview with us, you interview with me, but then also other managers who work like in our training department. So be prepared to meet potentially interviewers from other departments, not just the one hiring manager. So they interview with me, our training manager, and our HR professional. But other than that, I would echo everything that the other panelists said too.
Yeah, that is helpful though, to think about interviewing people who might not be technical writers or managers of technical writers as well. So Don, anything about the process, especially since you're currently hiring, that you think people should know?
Our current process is the resumes come in through Lauren Weaver, and then she'll look them over, and then they'll send them out to my PM boss, and then he'll distribute them out to the 6 or 7 other project leads for opinions. And then we'll look through we each all have our opinions on what we are looking for in a resume, and then we kind of meet as a quorum. And then if we have a majority, then we'll, try to interview the person and go from there. And then once we give them an interview, of course, then we go on from there with their offer or let them know that they're not a fit for the position.
Okay, yeah, that's certainly something to keep in mind. The rejections do happen. It's nice to be notified. I know when you're on the job seeker side, especially. And do you?
Nothing worse than not knowing what's going to happen when you're still waiting for something to come in that's never going to show up.
Right, exactly. So I've got another question that you guys can answer how you like, but I'm looking for, what are some of the main traits or skills you're looking for beyond, the core skills of writing, managing your time, your projects, that sort of thing? I said 3 main ones, but I'm open to other numbers. I'm going to go to Christine first this time on what are the things that you look for once someone's gotten through the screening, they've gone, you've looked at their resume and you're ready to interview them.
A thing about coming on to our company, being a software company, you've got to learn our software. So I'm looking for somebody who's willing to learn. And of course, the writing skills, and also looking for somebody who's a really good problem solver. Because a lot of times in software documentation, it's a matter of opening up the software. It's brand new. The developers finished it yesterday, and you've just got to click around and figure out what do things do, and then be able to document processes from there. So problem solving skills are a huge plus.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Someone who can get in there into the application and start trying things out. Ryan, how about for you? What are some of the things you look for in a candidate?
I look for, so one of the things I kind of going back to the last question, but transitioning to this question, you got to treat your job search as if it is a technical writing job or a technical communication job. So that attention to detail is extremely important. Making sure your resume tells the story as succinctly as possible and without errors. That is a huge thing. It's got to be error-free. And then the research side shows that you care enough about what you're doing to do the research, just as if you're writing documentation for a product, you have to do the research. So if you can do that and you can show me that you've done that, then it's a whole lot better than if I have to pull things out of the interviewee or make guesses based on what they didn't say. Particularly skills that I do look for are fit in terms of not a fit that they fit the mold of our team, but they have a voice that's currently not being represented on our team. That's a big bonus for me. Our office is based in Minneapolis, and everyone except for our newest hire, a person in Poland, and myself are in that area, Eau Claire or Minneapolis. I want someone who is outside of Minneapolis, has a different background, and has a different perspective for many different things. So I look at that as well. Not to say that we don't hire someone who is from Minneapolis or St. Paul or any of the other areas, but that is definitely a thing at least at Jamf, that we value. Skills are taught. Talent is inherent. So if you can show off your talent either in your resume or your portfolio, I think you get a leg up on other people.
Yeah. So treat the job search like it is your job. Sounds like great advice. Stephanie, I was going to ask you about traits. I have a recollection that we talked handshakes last time we were in person.
Yeah, I'm definitely one who will think less of you if shaking your hand is like a fish. So a nice firm handshake is something that I will notice right off. I definitely second Rhyne. Don't have any mistakes in your resume. If I find one, it goes straight into the garbage. There's just no quarter with that, especially for a technical writing position. You have to know how to do the job, and a lot of the applicants I get are also CWEPs and college new hires or experienced people. And when I say know how to do the job, that doesn't mean you already know how to use ArborText or you're teaching Word on Saturdays at the local college. That means that you can take a technical or a complex task and you know how to write it out into something a little bit more simple and digestible by a wider group of people. And I always use the example of making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And Dawn may laugh at this because that's the test I used to give when I worked at JHT. I give tests during interviews. I say, you're going to make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, write down the steps. And if someone can break down a task and write the steps to it, in a logical manner, that is a lot of what I'm looking for. There are a lot of people who give more detail, a lot of people give less detail, and a lot of people who don't even know what I'm talking about. And just knowing and being willing to learn how to do the job is important. I will say though, XML is a big part of the industry at this point, and I don't think Lockheed really focuses on that on the technical writing career. But it's really the easiest coding language you could ever learn. Just looking at HTML is close enough. It's a tagged language, so it's really easy to pick up. That has been the easiest thing to teach, so don't ever be afraid if you don't know Arbortext or not familiar with XML. You can look at any website. If you build your own websites through, I don't know, WordPress, and look at the code view, that's exactly what XML looks like. And then secondly, I like to know if someone's going to try and pull the wool over my eyes. And I do that by asking one simple question every single time. And I ask them, what is your skill level in Microsoft Word? Are you on a scale of 1 to 10, are you a beginner, or are you a 10, you could teach it? If anyone says they are a 9 or above, they are a liar, because everyone knows that there are no such thing as an expert in Microsoft Word.
We all want to be, though. We all want to think we are.
Oh, I don't know that I want to be either.
So, Dawn, anything about, as you're currently hiring, things you're looking for?
I just want to reiterate that what was brought up here, that if you do have grammatical errors or spelling errors in your resume, that's the quickest way to get out, thrown in the garbage. Targeting is, and being certain that if you have experience in XML, and we listed on there that we want XML, tell us what you did and where you did it. If you don't have XML, but you have a similar or related, like Stephanie had mentioned, like HTML or SGML or whatever, that also helps. JHT's pretty much gone away from Word, and we're almost exclusively to XML now. So when we look for an applicant on a resume, we're looking for XML first and foremost.
All right. Patrick, anything to add, whether hard or soft skills or?
The one thing I would say is like initiative, or doing something extra. Like I've used the peanut butter and jelly example just like everyone else has. I did it as a writing assignment, and actually had them, did the interview, and then had everyone that I interviewed email me their peanut butter and jelly procedures, so that I could actually see their formatting, their writing structure, how they used punctuation. And I've had, one person in particular, he actually went above and beyond and actually included figures and, properly implemented, figures in his process. And, that's that initiative, going the extra step. And just like everyone else said, if your resume's, messed up, you're probably not going to get interviewed.
So I guess I'll actually come to you for this next question then, Patrick. I was going to ask if there's ever been a resume or someone in an interview who did something that really stood out that's been memorable to you.
I would probably say that peanut butter and jelly,
Yeah.
I probably asked 10 people to do it the last time it was last fall. And, 9 of them were like the other people had said, they were short, they were super detailed, but the one that included the color illustrations with, all the figures were labeled, they're referenced before you got to them. This person really did a good job and went the extra step on that procedure. And he had done all the research about Lockheed, was super excited about wanting to work at Lockheed and knew a lot about the company. So it's that, doing the initiative, that extra research, whether it's, the writing assignment, research about the company, making sure your resume is formatted properly and targeted for the job that you're applying for. It's doing that extra.
Yeah. I know we all want to see someone who's going to actually commit and go beyond just the bare minimum. Rhyne, how about for you? Things that have made someone really stand out?
Yeah, I will talk about the same thing. We had an applicant who had no DIT experience, had no Agile experience, but she had great technical writing experience. She had, experience that was technical enough so we could tell that she could learn, and she made great answers. But what pushed her above a lot of the other ones was we only give 20 minutes to do two writing samples or two writing exercises, and one of them is how to make coffee. So hers was really great, succinct, to the point. She talked about the decisions that were made for choosing the coffee, how you would get information from an SME to choose the right coffee type, the right coffee machine press, whatever. And so she made a great leap beyond, like Patrick was saying, a leap beyond in the writing, but also a leap beyond in what they're going to do to find out what the user needs. And for Jamf, what the user needs is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I will take the opposite side of that. We, stick out in a bad way. We had someone who refused to write the coffee example because he had never drank coffee in his life. So that one, even though on paper he was great, that showed us that, okay, you've never made coffee in your life. Have you ever done this documentation that we're trying to hire you for in your life? So it was really odd. So make sure that when someone gives you a writing exercise, that you actually do what they ask.
So that kind of speaks to the willingness to learn item that keeps coming
Exactly.
up, even if it's not something you're comfortable with yet. I'm also not a coffee drinker. I could give instructions for how to make bad coffee. I don't know if that would be as helpful though. So I was gonna then say we went to Patrick. Christine, do you have any things that have made someone stand out? We'll take good or bad because cautionary tales are also helpful.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. I would say to stand out in a good way, others have mentioned this, but I want to see a resume that's tailored to the position. So it's using some of those keywords from the job description that shows that you have that experience. Also knowing the company, which I know is something that's come up a lot, but I mentioned earlier, my advice for a job search would be to be intentional and know what you want. And part of that is knowing the background of the company that you're going to go to work for. So it really helps if you can demonstrate that you've done some research and you know what kind of an organization you're applying for. Recently, one that stood out, a bad interview that stood out was we had just started the interview and I was introducing myself and he interrupted me to say, I want to ask you, what are the top 3 things you're looking for? And one of my pet peeves is being interrupted. So that automatically put me off. But so then I told him my top 3 things that I'm looking for. And he said, okay, I want to know that so that I can tailor my responses during the interview to what you're looking for. But then he never touched on those 3 things again. So it didn't even help. So, be respectful of your interviewer. And if you're going to ask something like that, make sure that you actually do address those things in the interview.
But it sounds like you would recommend do not cut off your interviewer in any case, especially not to then tell them what they need to know, I suppose. I've never heard of that happening. I'm sorry. I'm imagining it was an easy decision then on that that person.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, how about you? It sounds like we're almost saying things that stand out or deal breakers.
Okay, I've got a couple, I think, on each side. So something that stood out for me was someone who thought outside of the box. And the example, Rhyne reminded me of it when he said someone who had never had coffee. This girl, our procedure she had to write was how to connect her computer. And it could have been as simple as set up monitor, set up keyboard, plug into PC, et cetera. She very smartly wrote, unpack a box, call IT. And I was like, wow, here's someone who works smarter, not harder. I actually did hire. She's fantastic. In addition to that is somebody who asks very, very intelligent questions afterward. And not so much always about the company, but very specifically about the position. For example, what kind of people will I be working with? And for example, in my company, you'd be working with multimedia, you'd be working with subject matter experts, engineers, logistics people, planners, program managers, customers. There's a variety of people. So that question was very, very intelligent to be asked. And then also, which MIL standards do I use? Because in DoD defense technical writing, there's always a MIL standard. And they're not the same. If you're Air Force, if you're Navy, if you're Army, they're not technically the same. And you don't have to have it memorized, but it's important to understand how to read it because each customer will read it a little bit differently than you do, and sometimes arguing how something is written becomes how a requirement is displayed. And then in a bad interview, I agree with Christine. I was interrupted and asked very personal questions. And this is a professional interview. You can be friendly without being too personal. And an example of a friendly but not personal question, if you wanted to know more, is tell me a little bit about yourself. What is your background? And that can be professional, and it opens the door for your interviewer to be personal if they choose to. But somebody saw a tattoo that I had and immediately started to poke a little too personally at me. And that was a big, this is not going to work for me. So yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you would say in general, don't comment on someone's physical appearance in any way.
Never, never. Not even if you already know them. I teach my kids that to this day. You don't ever mention anyone's physical appearance ever in a derogatory manner. You can say you look nice, but that's it.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. So Dawn, anything that is a real standout for you, good or bad?
I've had a few real good ones in the past. I've had a recent one about a year and a half, 2 years ago that we just did basically an interview in person.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't actually go through the interview formally. We just hired them at that point. For the bad side of it, we had a person that came in with for official use only manual that she had printed up to show her portfolio. And she wanted to show it to us. And that slightly freaked out the people that were interviewing her at the time, because now we're concerned about whether she's compromised what she's brought with her and whether she compromised our building and et cetera. So that was a big no-no at that point. We understand the need sometimes when people are told that they need to have a portfolio or show your work or whatever, but there are times that, especially if you're working on military contracts, you just can't pull out stuff that you wrote, show to people.
Yeah, I think it's common, even if you don't work in a like proprietary or secret clearance sort of job. A lot of our work is under, confidentiality, and many of us, I think, can't use any actual writing samples from our jobs and have to create them outside of work, which, if we're all writers, it shouldn't be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had anything that stood out as a good example, or Don?
We've had multiple really good interviews along the way. Like I said, the one that was most stand out the most is the one that I actually went to hire without actually doing a formal interview or letting any of the other tech leads talk to the person.
What was the clinched it for you?
Just the personality and the way they answered the comments and stuff during the interview. Basically, it was a person-to-person interview type thing. It was a job fair event. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay, so job fairs can be a way to go. I'm sure we'll look forward to when we can do such things in person again someday in the not too distant future. So I'm actually going to go back to Stephanie because it sort of tacks on to what she said. Often I know in interviews you get asked, what questions do you have for me? And I know you gave one suggestion about asking who you should work with. Do you have other suggestions for questions that someone should ask their interviewer?
Yeah. A good one is what's expected of me on the first day. And I know that's probably going to vary by company. For example, Lockheed Martin has a huge chunk of orientation. Right now it's all videos because everybody's virtual, followed by meeting with your buddy who walks you through the steps, starts setting you up for programs and stuff. And then maybe what's your expectation of my tasking for the first month or so? Again, at my position, to me, that's okay, this person's worried, what kind of skill set they're supposed to be walking in the door with. And the buddy is something that I inform them of. You're going to have somebody who you're going to be able to go to with any questions whatsoever. And they're going to walk you through everything, because Lockheed Martin has, beyond the skill set of technical writing, there's very specific processes that are in place that are expected to be followed. And you won't ever know that going in the door, but it is a big part of your job. So the expectation for the first month is to learn and take a lot of notes and ask a lot of questions. So, but that question makes me know that somebody's really thinking beyond the next step.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Rhyne, do you have questions you recommend people ask?
What Stephanie said were great questions. The one that I like getting is, what does a day in the life of an employee look like? I like questions that kind of try to find out how the sausage is made in terms of, you know, what do you do, or how do you get through problems? How do you where does the work come from? So is it product management? Is it engineering? Where does the work come from? And then I don't mind when they ask things like, what's the biggest frustration for your team right now? And that gives good insight into where their head is, but also it makes me think that they care about what they work towards or what they're working towards. And then if you care about your work environment in terms of how they treat other people, it's great to ask things like, how does your company support this community? Asking direct things to show that you're passionate about not just the job but the company, and it's a good path to go down. When you're struggling to find out, you've been on your 10th interview with the 10th company and you're not quite sure what to do, how they treat other people sometimes really helps you to choose the company as well. And I want to be chosen as much as I want to choose them.
Yeah, it's a reciprocal thing too, right? Making sure the company's going to be the right one for you to, commit to work with. Don, how about you? Questions that you would like to be asked, or
I had one today, similar thing about what is a normal day, typical day would do. We had a couple interviews going on today that I was part of. One of those questions was asked, so we had a chance to expand on what it would be expected basically for the day. The ones I like is when they ask what is my work schedule going to be, so we can tell them the benefits that we have available and whether they can use one of the two work schedules or whatever. I feel if they're asking what their work schedule is, they probably already bought into working at JHT, so now they want to look forward and plan ahead. I've had fielded questions in the past where they ask what the environment is, whether or not it's a family environment, which is always a good question for us because we all like our environment there based on our owner, who's very hands-on and very family orientated. So that helps us out. So it always makes us feel good when they ask about the environment that they're going to be going into. So basically environment going into, what kind of schedule. Once again, you can never go wrong with asking what they expect from you. I mean, even if you can't do it now, you'll get there eventually if you get in the door.
yeah, that makes sense. It seems like a lot of these questions are about specificity and getting a better idea of what, day by day, hour by hour, your job is going to be. Patrick, do you have any advice for questions for an interviewer?
On top of the ones we've already heard, maybe, what's the team dynamic like? Who would they be working with? Maybe about the product they might be writing about. But I think everyone else, pretty much hit all the good questions.
Yeah. Christine, I know. Yeah, sorry. Don't worry, there's no stealing of answers. Christine, did you have anything you would want to add about questions?
I would echo what everybody has said, but I would add, do ask a question. I'm always a little disappointed after I've spent 45 minutes or an hour with somebody and I've asked them a bunch of questions and we've talked a lot. And then I say, okay, what questions do you have for me? And they say none. I'm always a little disappointed by that because I want them to demonstrate interest. So, I mean, and there's, what is my first day going to be like, my first 6 months, company culture, team dynamics, all those things are general, kind of generic questions that you could ask anybody that you're interviewing with. So my piece of advice would be do ask questions because it shows that you really are interested and that you're thinking about it. And it's not just a job to you. It's somewhere where you're trying to picture yourself there. So you want to know more information about the company.
Yeah, that sounds like great advice. So I'm going to come for my last moderated question to you, Christine. 2020 and 2021 have been some wild years already, and we've seen, people shifting to working remote. What else do you see changing in the future for technical writers, whether it's pandemic related or otherwise, from how we work now or have worked in recent years?
I mean, I think a big trend is that we're not just writers anymore. There is certainly a big portion of it that's writing, but we're also making videos or documenting APIs, or there's all kinds of things that kind of get just outside of the box of writing. My team is doing a lot of usability testing of our software, so getting into more UI UX work. So and learning skills like I don't when I'm looking at a candidate, they don't necessarily have to know like HTML or JavaScript or CSS or things like that. You can learn those on the job, but like, not just writing in plain English, you're writing CSS and JavaScript and XML. And so think outside just the box of writing every day, because there's much more coming that we do every day.
Yes, we're certainly all expected to be specialists who are also generalists, right? At the same time. uh, so I guess I'll go to Dawn. Things that you think are shifting in the field of technical writing or documentation?
I reiterate what she said. We're going more of a multimedia type thing. Graphics and multimedia and videos and stuff are getting more involved. Our paper-based manuals we wrote in the past, and like a decade ago, everything was paper. Everything had to be printed out. Everything had to be, come out in a PDF to be printed or whatever. And now the Army is actually they're going down the road in the near future. They're going to be all electronic. So there will be no paper anymore at all. So I think that's the biggest change that's going to happen for us, at least for our portion of the industry, because we do a lot of tech data for the military. And I think eventually the military will finally wise up and realize it's probably better to give that maintainer a tablet to take with him to work with, so he can have more stuff available for him to be able to do his job.
Yeah, sounds like we're moving past sort of some of the physical limitations for documentation in the past, continuing to do so. Patrick, how about you? Anything you see as a shift, either in how we work or, what we do?
How we work is probably going to be remote. Which, if you'd have asked me 14 months ago if we could do our job remote, I would have been a resounding there's no way that would ever work. But the last year has shown that we absolutely can work remote and can do a very good job at it. But then I think the other people say we're going to be shifting from paper to more, electronic types of delivery systems, and probably including videos and, AI, where you have, virtual goggles and some type of virtual reality capability.
Yeah, that's exciting stuff. We're living in the future we always wanted to see in movies, slowly but surely. Stephanie, what are your thoughts? What's changing?
I mean, I can't think of anything new to say, but I reiterate what everyone else already said. My entire team is now remote, so much in fact that two have moved to Texas. So one is in Colorado at this point, one's in Utah. Definitely more digital. Our growth of our 3D product has grown, even for overseas teams to do repair, utilizing digital tech pubs with 3D imagery, and it's just on a tablet, it's just an ease of use, and it cuts down training time. So I think there's going to definitely be a growth in that, especially now with the pandemic and just the way that the manpower has shifted throughout this past year.
Yeah, it's certainly been a major shift, I think, across industries, but especially for us. Rhyne, I'm going to throw it to you. What do you think is, if not changing now, what will change?
I think we're seeing a shift from siloed content to more of a unified content idea, where education or customer education, customer success, support, marketing, and documentation are all feeding into the same content animal. And I think that the differences between the content will continue to shift, and you'll see the marrying of teams more in the future. And I think a lot of that is driven by the fact that content creators in general are becoming more focused on the user and being closer to the user, and making sure that their content is specifically geared towards their users. And then also, I think that technical writers are going to be asked to be more technical, because of the areas where we are focusing on and the areas we're growing in, like cybersecurity, financial, fintech, healthcare technology. We're going to be asked to be more of SMEs and not just clinger-ons to make something pretty that a developer's already written, which is that's not what we do, but I'm just saying that's what the people
perception
see.
is.
But if you can become, perception, yes. So if you can become an SME in cybersecurity, you could probably start out a good 20K more than someone who is coming into the same job without that background, because they know that they're going to pay more for someone who has specialized skills.
Yeah. It's a look to the future and also some great advice for people who are looking to, enter or transition into a new job. I am going to ask a question that I believe Rita, I hope I remember who asked this question about how you can transition into the profession, especially how can you establish the years needed for entry level jobs, which sometimes say 3 to 5 years if you don't have specifically a technical writing background. Does any of our panelists have experience for how you would recommend someone do that? Stephanie's ready.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say, so Lockheed Martin is a leveled company, meaning that we have college new hires, level 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, et cetera. And that's all based around experience. A person who is a level 1 is not expected to have as much experience. And a college new hire, of course, just means that's actually a different kind of requirement. You have to have graduated within a certain amount of time for that one. But a level 1, your experience could be anywhere from 3 months to a year. And that experience doesn't necessarily have to be technical in nature, because again, even your technical writing communications degree doesn't have a lot of technical aspects to it, in my opinion. You're learning how to write in a group, and you're learning how to do the research and compose things. So showing experience with writing projects and then just the qualities needed to be a technical writer would be okay for a level 1 type position at my company.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie. Ryan's nodding a lot. Did you have something
Yeah,
to
no,
add to that?
that's absolutely true. I definitely agree with all of that. And personally, I look for talent, and I think I said before, I look for your ability to write more so than whatever kind of schooling or experience you have for that level 1 for certain. Level 2, there's a little different, and then senior, it doesn't matter. Age doesn't matter. It's all about what you've done in the past. To give a little bit of if you are looking to move, a lot of times startup companies and small companies who are already agile, already wearing many hats, will welcome someone who has the passion to be a technical writer to come in and work with other departments, even if you don't have the experience. I've hired people who they had the writing ability, but they've never been a writer before as a profession. But they were passionate about the startup. They were passionate about learning to be a technical writer. They came in, stayed a few years, and then moved to another company to be a manager. So
good for them.
yeah.
So, Dawn, anything you would add about people who are, just starting out?
Like you said, especially like UCF graduates, you guys did go through the coursework, you did all the classes, you had a basic smattering across all the different things, so you saw different things along the way. So you don't really have a specialty yet. Now, a lot of times you're going to see where they want 3 to 5 years or equivalent, and the catch to everything that you see out there is or equivalent, and that's in the eye of the interviewer. If they feel that you can take that step from walking away from college, working into our program and moving up, that's fine. JHT is kind of doing a ground roots up thing. We're actually starting with the lower level people coming from UCF and training them in our system. And those will be the people to take over in the end for us, as opposed to going out to fire in the higher level, like a senior tech writer or whatever, because we've tried to do that in the past. And most of the time it doesn't work out because they don't work in our little niche. So for us, it works better to actually take someone that's willing to learn and then shows an aptitude for what we want and to bring them along the way we can.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Christine, anything in your experience for people who are brand new?
I would say networking, if you can, like get involved with your STC chapter, get to know people in the field. You can get knowledge of the field through STC, through webinars that they do, classes that they have. So there's ways to still get some experience. And then those network connections can help you find a job. And as we've seen from some of the other panelists, sometimes just having that foot in the door with knowing somebody is a big help. Also, when you're looking at jobs, if you don't have, when you're looking at the requirements on the job position, if you don't have all of them, I would say still apply for it, because you never know what the other applicants are going to have. And you might not have all of the requirements, but you might have more than the other people who apply at the same time as you. So it's always worth throwing your hat in the ring. So don't let that hold you back.
So don't sell yourself short. It sounds like is one of your piece of advice. Patrick, I know I'm coming to you last. Anything else you would add for people who are new or transitioning?
No, I would just say, something we talked about earlier is making sure your resume is perfect. You don't have that experience to fall back on, so you only have a few examples that you can provide, which would be, their resume, doing a good interview. And I know for me, a lot of times recently I've hired directly from the UCF, either the CWIP or the coming in as a contractor as a very junior level writer. And obviously those people do not have any experience. And so it's that, ability to learn new things or, present yourself well.
Absolutely. So Julia, did we have any questions in the chat?
We did have one. Kay asked, what recommendations does anyone have for a more seasoned person looking for a career in technical writing with no experience?
So what I've done in the past in an interview, and I'm going to use, unfortunately, a CWEP as an example, because that's the one that popped into my head. CWEPs, are college students, meaning their only work experience is maybe at Home Depot or at an auto parts store, and that has nothing to do with technical writing. But through the course of asking them what their tasks were, you find out, hey, I actually managed some documentation, or I had to do this kind of problem solving, or I had to research what this part was and why this document was out of date. I actually wrote a training manual on how to find this part. If you've done it, think about what you've done thus far and pick out those parts that may actually relate to the technical writing career. You're not going to have, technical writing as a title for any kind of experience to get you, a higher position type in technical writing, but you may, if that's what you want to get into, that could be a way for a beginning position.
All right, thank you,
Don't
Stephanie.
always,
Rhyne?
don't always attribute opening entry-level technical writing as extremely low paying. I know at Jamf, we have a very large range for Tech Writer 1, and someone coming in with experience that we feel is applicable, whether it's, you've been a manager before at whatever it is, or you've done this type of work that we feel like, as a developer, if you were a developer and you've worked in Agile, I'm not going to have to teach you Agile. I'm not going to have to teach you how to work with developers. So I might pay you higher because you're coming in from a higher level career-wise. But yeah, that opening range is usually pretty wide.
Okay, that's excellent to know. From our other panelists, do you have advice for people who are making the leap later in their career? Don says, nope, it's covered.
Nothing other than that we've already mentioned all along. Be specific, tailor your interview, or tailor for the interview and stuff like that.
I'll give one more and I'll be quiet. I'm sorry. A lot of, if you have the ability to do it, a lot of nonprofit agencies need good technical communicators to help flesh out whatever it is, to work on grants, to work on procedures. A lot of them have to have procedures for things if they want to get grants, or if they have anything to do with the government, they're going to have something documented. So reaching out to nonprofits is a great way to gain experience that you can put on your resume and you can have to show. Of course, you don't get paid for it, but you get paid in other ways.
Yeah, that's great advice. So just for those who are on the call, if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat, or put in the chat if you would like for me to call on you for a question. I don't think we had any other questions yet. Oh, of course. Now we have a question. All right. Alex is asking for all the panelists, how did your company adapt to the pandemic and support its employees? I see smiles, so I'm hoping that means you have great stories.
I mean, I'll go because Alex works at my plant. I don't know about your team, Alex, but everyone got sent home. We were 100% telecommuting unless your job was mandatory. And in those first few weeks, even If it was mandatory, there was a special charge code until they deemed that it was safe enough for you to interact at all in any way, shape, or form at the plant. Masks are mandatory. Cleaning has been increased. They've decreased traffic through the cafeteria. They've closed down non-essential functions at the plant. For my team specifically, for any in-plant needs, I rotate my staff in so that only, everyone's only in there 1 day a week for, whatever this task is. That limits their interactions, and it gives them an opportunity if they're, not afraid or not comfortable going in. But it also allows them to go in again because, as everyone on my team has said, we miss each other. We were very used to having those hallway or across the cubicle wall conversations, and there's not a lot of people in there. But when they do run into somebody on their way to the bathroom or on their way to the cafeteria, it was nice to finally see somebody be like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in like 7 months. How have you been? So Lockheed has actually been really, really great. They've, my program specifically sent everyone thermometers, everyone got masks sent to them. We've gotten t-shirts, we've gotten jackets, and all that just kind of seems like, extra here's some swag, just, keep coming to work. But we've been able to bring home our double monitors. We've been able to set up workstations. If in the plant we had a special chair, we've been able to bring that home. It's just been, in my opinion, it has been the most flexible that I've ever seen it, to the point that we've even switched our entire work schedule to a 4-10, but you don't even have to work that if you don't want to. So Lockheed Martin MFC has just been fantastic.
Yeah, it sounds really positive. Don, experience at JHT, I think, because you guys used to all be face-to-face as well, right?
Yes, JHT was probably 90% to 95% in office, in cubicles. When you go in the office now, there's no one there. The only people that are actually in the office now, even 1 year afterwards, is just the administrative staff. And then if we come in specifically to work on in the labs and some of the equipment. We went pretty much basically, we were along the same lines. We always said all along that, no, we can't be, we're 100% remote. We can't do that. We can't do that. Oops, we are now. So basically they did the same thing for us. They sent us all home. They were very, if you have problems or you have anything come up or you can't come in or whatever, when you have to come in or you got a doctor's appointment or whatever, we're supportive to that. And if we travel for the company, we also have to quarantine before we come back into the general area. So right now it's currently 2 weeks. So if I go to Georgia for an event, when I come back, I can physically not go back into the office for a minimum of 2 weeks or getting a negative test. Of course, we don't tell them to get a negative test because I don't want to wish that on anyone. So we just tell them to wait the 2 weeks at home.
Well, it's exciting that, so many people are getting vaccinated now. Things are finally moving forward. I know we've got folks on the call who have already gotten their vaccine. Very excited for them and looking forward to joining them. So certainly looking forward to things getting back to something more like a normal. Ryan, how about you? Anything that's been a major change since the pandemic?
Yeah, so Jamf offices worldwide are still closed. We have not been in the office. I've only been there 4 months, so no one has been in the office. So we're 100% on Zoom. We've done a few things. We've increased the number of social events that the company sponsors. We've had like a dueling piano concert. We've had karaoke nights. We've had some things to bring people together so that they feel like there's a little social. Like you said, people were able to take stuff from their desk home. My team were able to take their monitors and such. But the cool thing is they've given us, we have a Jamf Cares program where at first they gave all the employees just swag that would make them feel more comfortable at home, and that escalated to everyone got $1,000 on a Benepass card, which it had to be like office type thing. So everyone got that, and they've extended that program to everyone in the future will get that once they join Jamf. And that's things like art for your office, shelves, rugs, desk, computer, monitors, an extra monitor if you wanted one, and things like that. The office supply area, that didn't count towards it. So if you needed an arm for your computer, we had those. You didn't have to buy your own computer with that or anything like that. It was just for your home office and getting it set the way you wanted it. So that was extremely worthwhile and useful. And they've given us a $500 stipend on top of it at the new year for people who, something may have worn out, or you needed more of something, or you didn't get what you needed the first round. So they've been really great about it. And the CEO has just recently said that we will never go back to having to be in the office. The office will become a tool for us to use when we need them, instead of being a place for people to go work every day.
Yeah, well, I know it sounds like you're trying to make us all jealous, and I think it's working. Last thing you just tell us is that you're getting free donuts on top of it, but
No. We don't get free food, and that's the thing that I miss from working at Cisco, is that there's no free food. Everyone is distributed, so yeah, we haven't been doing that.
Well, so I know I didn't go to all the panelists, but we've got Amber would like to actually ask a question, so I'm going to throw it to Amber, and then we'll come back for the other question in the chat. So
thank you, Bethany.
You're welcome.
So my name is Amber. I'm graduating this year. I'm majoring in technical communication, and I have some operations and like PR background. So I realized that technical writing in itself isn't necessarily what I want to do. But I've kind of gotten into like focusing on product management and project management. And I saw that some of the panelists had experience in that field. So I was just trying to feel out, guess, how did you get into that? And how did you feel like your technical communication background prepared you for that role?
Okay, so it was a question for panelists who have product or project management experience and how they got into it.
Don, I'm gonna let you go first.
I bet you will. Mine basically come out of longevity. I've been there longer than most anybody else. So I've been more familiar with more of the programs and everything else. I ran the other way whenever they used to talk program manager and financials and all that. I have now actually been slowed down enough to be caught a few times. So that's basically how I have the title. We also have what they're worried about is the succession planning for someone else above us to not come into work one day or whatever. And that's also been generating and germinating to the lower levels to probably lead to more program managers in the future for us.
So you're saying you're looking for people who can build that institutional knowledge kind of, from entry level up?
Right, because like when I mentioned earlier, we were looking at, we don't mind hiring them out straight out of college and teaching them how to do it our way, because eventually they'll be the ones that take over.
Yeah, Stephanie, you had something to build on with?
Yeah, so I have a very varied career. Of the 5 panelists here, I've worked at 3 of the companies. I started at RMS right out of college. I've worked at some other places. I worked at JHT, actually with Dawn, and now I'm at MFC. And it's been, for me, it's just been taking opportunities, even though I didn't expect them, and they might not have always been beneficial in the way of monetary assets, but the knowledge was always more important to me. I actually, when I left RMS, I took a pay cut to go to another company, and I ended up becoming a certified Army instructor training that I never thought I would. And that helped my performance. It helped with interviews. It helped with, just how I presented myself in the office, so that when I got around to some of these other companies, they started to notice, well, she knows how to present herself and she knows what she's talking about. And she's got a lot of knowledge that I didn't expect. So when I came to MFC, I was a documentation lead. I was just a technical writer, associate manager. And then because I handled the variety of people and issues so differently, having just a little bit of assistant PM experience from JHT, they offered me another position that I had 0 experience in, and it was a configuration manager. And configuration management is, I'm gonna dumb it down. It's requirements. You take a piece of hardware and you make sure that it's built to what we say it's going to be built to. And you take paperwork and you say, okay, I promise the government I'm going to deliver this status report. So it's basically process and requirements. And so having both of those under my belt is kind of how and all that other knowledge is how I got the title that I got, which is project engineering manager. Because I've done management, I've done finance, I do manpower still, I manage people, I manage people's careers. and I manage a product as well. There is nothing that comes out of my sniper program that hasn't been stamped off by someone on my team to say that it has matched release engineering documentation. So I guess my suggestion is be open to learning new things, even if you don't think that it's going to help you, because you never know when it will help you. Just learning something that you're interested in and taking those unexpected opportunities. That's how I got where I was.
Anyone else want to add on to that or has experience to speak to? Okay. Well, thank you, Amber. It was a great question. Oh, Ryan's got something. He's ready.
No, sorry. Yeah, I think TechCom is a great place to get your foot in the door and get experience with software. If you have the passion for it, honestly. And then from there, within a couple years, you can move to any parts of the software development shop. I've had writers move to product management. I've had writers move to marketing, support, everywhere in the scope of a software company.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. So we have another, oh yeah, Amber says thank you. Another question that's from the chat, which is how would you evaluate a candidate's resume if that candidate's training or education comes from a non-US institute or a program that's new and whose curriculum isn't known to you? So you can't evaluate, a certain skill set that you would expect. So I know there's a follow-up question of what are the items on your checklist that where you'll consider to chat with this person. So I think kind of looking for, how would you interview, I guess, an unconventional candidate or someone who doesn't come from a, specific technical communication educational background?
So unfortunately, my program, we can't have non-US. We actually you even need to have a clearance. But I will say that for the non-conventional background part, again, the way that I interview, I will look at what you wrote on your resume and I will ask very open questions because I want you to tell me what you did. So if you say, well, I took a course in writing and I don't know the curriculum, I'd ask you, well, what did you learn in this course? Give me an example of how you learned that. Give me an example of how, what tools you used. Or, I did a group project and here's our output. I'll ask you what your role was in that group and how you worked with the team. And if there were conflicts, how did you handle them? Did you go to the professor or did you work them out as a group? So I try to find related questions because to that point, just because it's not straightforward tech writing doesn't mean it's not going to be applicable and you're not a great candidate.
All right. So being open to talk about the specifics of your experience sounds like would be really valuable on the candidate side.
And I would suggest too that if you know that it's an unconventional resume, to give a little bit more detail. I know people like concise resumes, but if your concern is, no one's going to know what this class structure was, then generalize it a little bit more. This is the class that, it was called this, but I learned this in it.
Okay, thank you. Other panelists, things to add?
I would say if they give you the option to submit a cover letter is a good opportunity to address that and address some of the things like Stephanie was just saying, so that you can still fill in those questions that someone looking at your application might have. You could address those in your cover letter.
Yeah, so being your own advocate for your experience sounds important. Ryan, did you have something?
I don't use education as a filter. I use it as a discussion point. So I don't care that you have an English degree or that you have a business degree or a nursing degree. If you have the talent and you have the passion for technical writing and you have the ability to learn technology quickly and then be able to transfer that information to someone else, it doesn't matter to me.
All right. Don or Patrick, anything to add on to that point?
We actually have currently a tech writer on staff that's actually a project lead now that started out as a SME for a camera, for cameras. And we were writing a TM at the time for the cameras for the military camera people, for the Army and stuff, for the people that go in, the combat photographers.
Mm-hmm.
And we brought him on the project simply because of his knowledge as a photographer and his background for videography. And we found out that we didn't want to let him go when the contract ended. So we asked him if he wanted to be a tech writer, and then we taught him how to be one. So if you don't have tech writing specifically on your thing, I'll reiterate it, just like Ryan said, that's not a no-show. That's, if you can show something else that will pique our interest that we think you can do it, that'll help.
All right.
I had my best, one of the best technical writers I've ever had on my team had a law degree from the Philippines. That was his college degree, but he is probably one of the best technical writers I've ever seen.
So it sounds like it's something in your favor sometimes to come from, maybe not the standard cookie cutter background. Rita says, thank you all, I think, for your responses. We have a question from Jessica. Are there any hobbies, interests, or other skills you found impressive from a candidate? Something told you how well someone could handle the day-to-day job? Or anything that you should not bring up, I guess, as a hobby, interest, or skill, I think is the flip side.
I mean, don't be a white supremacist.
Yeah, that's a bad hobby to have, for sure.
I don't mean that as a joke. I literally had to fire someone because he was spouting that kind of stuff at work, and one of my employees got very uncomfortable, and it went to HR. And Lockheed Martin is very openly a diverse and inclusive company, and any kind of hate speech is not acceptable. In terms of hobbies that are interesting, I'm interested in everybody's hobbies, honestly, but one that I do and practice in, because my degree was actually creative writing, is I'm a self-published author of 2 novels at this point. And anyone, a lot of the technical writers who come out of UCF have also done a little bit, a smidge of creative writing, or they're also interested in video games or sci-fi stuff. So generally I'll ask their hobbies and connect with that. But if you can write, whether it's creatively or technically, what that shows is dedication and a sense of organization. So that's something that's useful. Yeah. But writing is definitely not the only hobby. It's just one that, is apparent.
Ryan, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I'll give you a trick. So since everything is done over Zoom, a lot of times you'll see some people's hobbies in the background of their call, whatever. So if I'm in my office, I have Funko Pops, I have soccer scarves, and I have a Viking sword that you can see. If a candidate is coming in and they call out those things, I mean, it's not like calling out a tattoo, which you should never do, but calling out something in the interviewer's background that you can connect with and tell a story about, it endears you to them and makes them see you as a person, just like, anything else. So it might be cheating, but hey, whatever.
It's just an opportunity for human connection, right? It's something we all need.
Exactly.
Other panelists, things that you've thought are good hobbies or skills outside of the work skills to bring up?
Occasionally, JHT in the past, if we're looking for a tech writer, we'll ask about technical skills. We may go as far as to say, have you ever built a computer? Do you work at home in the garage on your car? Do you do work around the house? If we're trying to find out something for like a mechanical thing, we ask if you ever built anything in your house, that type of thing. So the hobbies can help to fill it out if we're looking to take, what you have on paper to match up what we're looking for too.
That's cool. Maker spaces are big around Atlanta now. So if you're a member of a makerspace doing robotics or whatever, that's also, that shows that you can learn technology. So,
or I'm going to throw this out because I also did this during the pandemic, any kind of home improvement project that you've done on your own, because most people don't know how to do it intuitively. It's something that you've done research. And if you're like me, research includes a lot of YouTube videos, but you've learned how to use the tool, you've learned how to do it the right way. Like I installed an entire new stairway over the pandemic, and I took the time to research it. I took the time to do it the right way. I cut and recut. I noted my mistakes and moved on and improved. So even, I do home improvement projects, or I grow plants, anything like that. It doesn't have to be geared towards writing only.
Yeah. Other panelists, anything you'd like to add?
I agree with everything that's been said, and I would add to that, put the technical in technical writing. So if you have kind of like Dawn said, building a computer, if you've taught yourself enough HTML to build a basic website or anything that can demonstrate that your technical side, projects that you've completed, because that shows that you're committed and you can see something through. Attention to detail. Like I have a guy on my team who builds little, very intricate models, and that shows attention to detail. And so think of those kind of technical things that would illustrate your technical aptitude.
Yeah, makes sense. Patrick, I just want to make sure I didn't miss you if you had anything you wanted to add.
No, I think everyone's pretty much hit it. You never know what you're going to get. I think the most bizarre hobby I had was one of my candidates did speed typing competitions. And could
That's
type like
awesome.
150 words a minute or something ridiculous. It was that was his hobby, which was kind of interesting.
I bet he got writing done fast then. My
Yeah,
gosh.
he was pretty quick.
Yeah, that could come in handy.
Yeah. I'll say I'm someone who was interviewed and had to tell people that I have a Dungeons and Dragons podcast because it's one of the first things you'll find if you search my name. I don't know that it's helped me, but I felt it was good to be
Wait.
upfront about it.
I didn't know you had that. Is it a play? Is it a play? Like a Critical Role type podcast, or is
not
it
at that level
you
yet.
talk about?
Both. We have an interview show and an actual play, and I learned a lot about audio, sound, editing, managing a team from that experience. But yeah,
That's good.
sure there's
I was going to mention you're
It
the only
took
one
me
that has like a
forever to find a
microphone.
group to play with.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. If you have questions about Dungeons and Dragons, feel free to hit me offline. I know quite a bit, but otherwise, we are close to the end of our time. We could take one more question if anyone has one in the chat. Otherwise, I will ask one more question. I'm giving a last call. Okay, so one thing we haven't really talked about. Oh, Jesslyn has one. All right, Jesslyn, you're up. If you'd like to ask, feel free to pop up.
Sorry to swoop in on you, Bethany.
No, it's exciting.
And if this has already been addressed, I missed it, and I apologize for that. But I was wondering if any of you have had interviewed potential applicants before, if the subject of addressing if they may be differently abled. For example, I'm hard of hearing and I function very well, and obviously writing doesn't really get compromised by that. But I just wonder if it's ever something that comes up in interviews, or how applicants address it, or how you wish they would address it if it needs to be addressed.
It's a great question.
I'm going to admit that I've not had the experience of interviewing someone who is differently abled, but I'm going to say that if I did, I would hope that they bring it up if they require something special in order to do the job, because, that should not preclude you from being a candidate for the position in any way, shape, or form, but making sure that we accommodate you so that you can do your best is definitely important.
Right. That makes sense, because for me personally, it's really mostly a matter of, if I am not responding to you, I probably don't know you're speaking. So, but it's always one of those things of, do I tell them now, or do I just wait till something awkward happens?
There is an engineer at my company who has double hearing aids, and because of that, phone conversations are really difficult. Yeah. And in-person conversations, he will tell you, I need you to speak very loudly and into this ear. Please don't feel like you're yelling. I just want to make sure I understand you. So again, it's just, we don't know what we don't know, and I'm certainly not going to ask you. So just be open about it, please.
Yeah.
I would echo the same thing. Bring it up, as soon as it's possible, so that the interview could go well.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Anyone have anything to add on that?
Luckily, a lot of companies are 100% remote, so the face-to-face won't be a problem for a lot of people for a while. So, or if ever.
Right. Thank you guys for answering my question.
Yeah. Great question. Okay, Claire has sneaked in one last question. We've still got a few minutes. She said, personally, I'm interested in international communications and traveling. Kind of funny in the pandemic, but still a passion for the future. Oh, travel, places, non-Florida places. I miss them. She said, as a current UCF senior, I was wondering if you have any advice in a job search. I assume specifically for people who are seniors. I know we've covered a lot, but anything to add?
If you have, I think it's very difficult for someone who was only an English speaker to really find a technical writing job that lets you travel. However, there are branches of technical communication, like, I consider evangelism a sort of a loosely aligned role, which would be a way to go if you want to travel a lot. But if you speak another language in the area that you want to target to travel, then I think it's a whole lot easier to find TechCom jobs to be able to do that.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Are you asking for a company that will send you on trips? Are you asking for available positions overseas? Or are you asking, which is what available on my program is, can you live anywhere and still do technical communications? Because with everything being remote now, I often tell my team, hey, you don't know if I'm in Norway or not right now. You don't know if I'm in Iceland, because with it being remote, you could literally be anywhere. I'm not going to ask you where you are, and still do the job. So in terms of being sent on the position, it's a different story though. So I'm just trying to figure out what it is exactly you're looking for.
I think at the moment I'm more open to everything and understanding that different companies will operate different ways. And all three of those options that you listed are valid options. It's something that I am doing my different research in, but I'm open to all of those.
So at my branch of Lockheed Martin, and my program specifically, we don't do a lot of travel domestically even or internationally for technical publications. However, my program, a lot of my technical writers have gone on into a more logistics role for customer support and hardware tracking and document delivery. And that has become very international. And we cover 26 countries. So we've been everywhere from Japan to Korea, Saudi Arabia, anywhere. I think we just got an Australia contract. So in my group, I would say that becoming a technical writer is a stepping stone to that, but technical writing specifically is not a role that I could offer for that.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I actually have had people over the last 14 months that have been to Germany, Alaska, Texas, Idaho, doing validation and verification events over the last 14 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are supposed to go to Hawaii later this year.
Yeah. We're on a complete travel ban right now, so it's no one can travel for work right now. We can go where we want to for fun, but you can't travel on the company's dollar.
And I'll add, if I was to travel, it'd be to Huntsville and back. So.
I'm in Mobile right now, and it's beautiful.
You're selling us on it big time.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing.
All right. Any last thoughts from our presenters?
Oh, man.
All right. Well, just wanted to close this out, remind everyone who our panelists are. Thank you so much for taking the time this evening to share your expertise, your wisdom, and answer everyone's questions. We're so grateful you were here and able to join us remotely. So, I would say a round of applause, but I've learned never to have people clap as a group on Zoom. Zoom can't cope with it. It suppresses all the, so then you're just clapping in silence. But I see we're getting a lot of thank yous in the chat. So appreciate your time, our panelists, for being here. If you're comfortable, we'd love it if you shared any sort of contact information, if people can reach out to you following, whether that's LinkedIn or any other social media or email, or otherwise feel free to get it to me later and I'll send it out. We will be sending out the link to this recording, so if you joined late or you have someone you want to share it with, it will be on the chapter's YouTube page. And appreciate you all being here so very, very much. Alex, anything else I'm forgetting to close us out?
I think we've covered it all. I said in the chat, I'm running the nomination committee this year. So if you're interested in possibly running for office in the chapter, let me know. I'm at alexrgarcia.stc@gmail.com.
Yeah, we're looking for the next leaders of the Florida chapter.
Exactly. It looks great on your resume. You can grow and learn how to project manage, basically.
Yeah, and get items for your portfolio because you will work on things that you will produce. So
Mhm.
yeah. Last, anything final? I want to make sure I'm not missing anything from any of our panelists. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for inviting me again.
Yeah, glad to have you back. I know we couldn't do the handshake in person. I wonder if will we do handshakes in the future? What's your prediction? Handshakes, will they make a return?
Oh, absolutely. We're all going to be vaccinated by the end of the summer, even those non-vaxxers, because you're not going to be able to go anywhere without a card. So I say this time next year, we'll have that handshake exercise one more time.
I see Christina shaking her head no to the handshakes. I think a lot of our social contact will be more optional going forward. We've gotten used to having a little more space. Our bubbles are a bit bigger. Well, except for spring breakers in South Florida, but we won't talk about them. So again, thank you all so much. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. And tomorrow's Friday, and then it's the weekend. So take care, everyone, and
Thank
look
you.
forward to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.